Okay. Wondering if that's loud. I'm using a new streaming software, so sorry I am late.
But today we're going to be talking about um, LLMs. And I don't know, I've been running into some interesting articles about them. If you follow my newsletter, oh, actually, I didn't even introduce myself. Hi, I'm Christina, and this is Late Night with the Geek. Um, Only time I could stream or even think about videos, and I'm actually um, using this as a way to research for my newsletter articles. I think it'll be great content. But I'm Christina. I've worked in AI and data science for a little over a decade, and I just have some interesting thoughts to share with you guys. I would love to hear your feedback, your questions, what you think should happen, and I have no idea where my camera is. And kind of your perspective on what I'm going to talk about and kind of the strategies that we can definitely use to make some changes. So this interest started when I wrote the article for my newsletter based on this article. And this article is kind of titled, AI companies are trying to build a god. Shouldn't they get our permissions first? So basically, as a public people, we didn't consent to AI, not in the way it's been used. So a lot of people want to build, magic AI in the sky, but does society want that? And so they say, according to this article, it's a great article, are using that is consent. And so, yes, I use LLMs. I find them very useful as I'm building my startup to kind of put together product management docs because, like, I don't know where to start when I'm writing docs. So it's good to kind of give it everything and it to kind of get the basics for you. And then you can go in and like edit it and it'll actually have a lot of the processes already there. So it's really useful. But the assumption is just because we use it, they have our consent to basically take our data from our websites and put it into it, which I think is two different things. Language models are useful, but that also doesn't mean you can scrape my website and put it in and not pay me, which, there's been a lot of lawsuits from authors, from movie stars, from just artists just concerned about the use of AI and whether or not they should ask us for permission and if they should pay us, right? So other people say public is ignorant. I think that's probably one of the larger, like, they don't know what's good for them. I hate that. I know what's good for myself, even if I'm not an expert in your field. I know what I do and I don't want. And if you don't know how to explain it at a level that everyone can understand, maybe you don't know what you're talking about. So you should be able to explain what you're doing, the impacts on me, and I should be able to make the decision about whether or not I want it in my life. The other one is it curtails innovation. And I think innovation for innovation's sake isn't great. I mean, how many sci-fi movies do we need with the robots coming to kill us to say, maybe we need to develop in a different way? So I don't really think that just because it is new and innovative that we should be doing it. So I agree with this. It is a great article. I have a summary in my newsletter of my opinions on it. But this kind of started me thinking into, how can we stop this as a community of people? And so that kind of got me into, okay, if they're getting content from scraping from the internet, I mean, it's different if they have access to like Facebook or Reddit or X or YouTube and they have permission to use already publicly available data from them because it's not necessarily ours on those platforms. Anyway, fine. But if we're talking about websites that are privately held, privately owned, could we potentially create a mechanism like a WordPress plugin, a Shopify plugin, other plugins that basically poison unauthorized AI scrapers? That way, it's not hurting like Google search algorithms, right? There's like certain bots that they use. But if you're trying to deploy it in a training model, it would basically poison that training model. And if you want to use my website, well, then you should have authorization through a payment system where you get the key to not have it poison your LLM. So now you're actually paying for me to use my information. And I think that would be a great solution. And a company already using 80 million a month was just going to lose some more because they really should ask, right? So how is this practical? Can we use it? And kind of what is even AI poisoning or data poisoning, if you don't know what it is, and kind of what are the security parameters I'm talking about and why I think this could be a solution. So I'm going to pull up this great website. It's called OWASP. I don't know, OSWAP, not in cybersecurity. But this is a cybersecurity website that works to improve the security of software. It's community-led open source product, right? And so basically what it has that I like, because I started getting into machine learning security ops and looking at the issues there, and it led me to this website. And so what are kind of the top 10 ways that LLM applications have issues? So the 10 are going to be prompt injection. So let's say that you're on ChatGPT and someone basically types in a prompt that actually gives unauthorized access to your searches or other information or even the backend code. So I'm not talking about that. I think prompt injection would not work on a massive scale. So insecure output handling. This would be kind of code execution, system compromise, anything that exposes data. Again, I'm not trying to expose your data, so I don't like that. We're going to skip to number 4 because number 3 is what I do want to talk about. But overloading LLMs with resource-heavy optimization. So just kind of like DDoS, when people basically shut down networks by sending a lot of bots to them. So that's one. Supply chains, basically integrity in data breaches systems, sensitive information disclosures. Not talking about that. I don't want to do something that would harm us. So a lot of these are that. But I think that training data poisoning is a great way to basically poison the data at mass if we can get large-scale adoption and force them to consider ways to pay people for their information instead of just taking it and putting it in something that they get paid for. So I have this printed out, but I didn't read it, and I also can't share a handout. But there is a page that has all of these in a handy dandy it keeps going to the lost page. Why did it go away?
It's not found.
It shouldn't go away like that. How dare they? Let's see. A new website to complement this one. Okay. I hate reading content. I like reading, but I hate slowing down to read, if that makes sense. There we go. Okay. So this kind of gives an overview of the content. So this is the one I want. And we want to look at number 3. So if you're not familiar with what machine learning is, essentially we take all of your data, whether it's the data that you use on your, like if you go to Kroger and you type in your number, all that data is stored. Whether you're searching on Google, all that data is stored. Your Netflix, all that data is stored. All your transactions, all of it's stored. And it's being used to train machine learning models. And basically you and a bunch of other people's information is being uploaded, and they're trying to extrapolate behaviors based on what you've already done. Basically, based on your past, we're trying to predict your future in a lot of cases. Not all cases, but in a lot of the cases. Or based on that, we're trying to recommend you something. So from the standpoint of, can we poison the training data? Because these things have to be trained again and again to stay up to date on information, right? So my key thing is, if we're using it to poison data, it has to stay up to date. Well, then if I keep up to date data poisoning on my website, unless you have the decryption, then hopefully you won't be able to use my website as a part of your model. So we are essentially manipulating that data so that we harm the fine-tuning process. So now we're creating security issues that they weren't expecting and they're not prepared for to suss it out. And we're creating it at mass. So we'd have to get a lot of people who have these websites to include it as a plugin. And I don't think this is hard to ask as it sounds like. I think it's kind of like downloading WordPress. It's like certain things that you always download. And if you get that in people's minds, then this would take over. And it takes a while, but at the end of the day, we win. So it's that process. So fine tuning is making sure that the data provided actually, when used in the model, it actually yields a good result. And so let's say that a malicious actor or a competitor brand intentionally creates inaccurate or malicious document, which is targeted at the model's pre-training or fine-tuned data embeddings, basically it gets uploaded and now you get falsified information. Or they directly inject that falsified information or harmful content into the model, or maybe a user accidentally puts it in there. All of those, I'm talking about doing it intentionally because it would not harm sensitive data of the user. It's not going to expose any part of their code. It's just saying you're not going to get reliable scraping data from my website. So this is essentially harder to do, I think, in some ways, for them to kind of protect against it because they have to legitimate all of the websites that they're scraping all across the world from the data sources, and they have to build in a way to stop that, and they'll stop getting enough information to make their model accurate the more websites that have it. So this is what I'm talking about, and one of the reasons why this, I think, could work is, like, for example, AI. This heading came from AI News. I like this website. I subscribe to a lot of different industry blogs, news sites. I like the FTC and the FCC right now. Like, I think they're going in on AI, and I think you have to protect people's data and information because not everyone knows what's happening or what's going on or why. But AI hallucinations gone wrong as Alaska uses fake stats in policy. Dun dun dun. So people are already relying on a GenAI model, a LLM model, to do their work for them. And again, language models are useful. I think small language models or fine-tuned language models for a use case that aren't general ones are probably the best use case for this technology. But let's say you're using ChatGPT and you fed it something and now it's going to create false citations. Well, with all the websites in the world, they can't really catch all of them. So I'm hoping that since they can't catch all of them, we'd be able to poison it enough to where they say, man, we have to start playing game with the encryption key. And so this is one of the things that is a concern to them. Also, it's being widely used in Google Maps, Google Earth, and Waze. And I've actually been at the back of like the Google Places API recently because I'm using it to code my app. And they do have a generative summary. And in some ways, I'm like, okay, summarizing my website for my business profile, I think that's a good use case. It's not really selling anything to anyone. In a sense, it's ensuring that other people can find me. That's vastly different from what ChatGPT or Claude or Llama, all of them are doing. Perplexity, which is reselling your information to someone else. So I decided to pull up a list of, I have articles on, I have no idea how to say this website, but I use it all the time. Arvix or ARXIV, I don't know. Someone please tell me. And so we're going to look it up, and a lot of people have been talking about data poisoning. I mean, it's a really big issue if you're summarizing information and it's wrong, or you're trying to use it as a Google search, which is very costly and expensive to make this into a Google search. Like the amount of energy, servers, all of that, I don't think it's good. Just use search for search and use LLMs for summary. But I digress. So with the growing use of that, there is a lot of concern about poisoning. And let's just read through this. A model trained on poison dataset produces attacker-specified outputs when the same trigger appears in test inputs while still behaving normally on clean inputs. So what does that look like? And I have atrociously slow internet right now. That is very unfortunate. It makes me sad. So that image did not load when I loaded this article. So let's look at it. So they're going to evaluate a variety of triggers, varying links, target outputs, different aspects, and they're going to propose evaluation metrics to gauge the performance of poison generative models. And they're going to look at the effectiveness of their poisoning attacks. So cool. Like, please, people, please poison these things. Again, I do like and use language models. I'm not against language models. I just think that we can't keep ignoring the common people. And if we open it and say, well, there's an exception for generative models like Japan did, then everyone's content is fair game, not, just not celebrity content, so we have to choose. So let's look at that. Poisoning attacks. So only 2 works on major attacks targeting LLMs are by this person, and they differently. So this article proposes an attack carried during the pre-training phase, which requires a training surrogate external generative model to generate trigger sentences, thus incurring heavy compute costs. Their approach only measures attack success based on toxic tone analysis. Okay. They do not use external models or their metrics are general. This proposes poisoning attacks to machine translation and dialogue generation, which is applied to full fine-tuning models where the target outputs are abusive sentences. Yeah, that would be funny. I mean, to an extent, that would be funny. Like quotes from movies, or actually, it would just be funny. Like, because it would just really overnight turn into like a lot of people getting horrible sentences from these things. They have to really think about it. So classification tasks. There's a lot of other people. So clean label attacks, instruction tuning attacks, hijacking. I would love hijacking attacks. Adversarial attacks. There is no work on attacking generative models trained using prefix tuning. In this paper, they are going to study those gaps. So trigger sentences, position of trigger sentences. Longer trigger sentences give the model higher chances to pay attention to their association, the target context. So they're basically going to test a bunch of sentences and figure out what it is. So they had a value metrics for text summarization, text completion, and what did they find? So what are we saying? Token length ratio, which is almost do the same task, max number of tokens in the model. So many. Well, there's not a lot, but or there could be more. Okay. Pyramids of details. Voicing trained data. I know my images are so poorly rendered. Higher, lower. Okay. Attack, stealthiness, success. So applying tags with full fine tuning being more successful. So target match for full time tuning. And then performance. Fine tuning is stealthier than prefix tuning, resulting in lower values for clean target match. Trigger insertion plays a role. Prefix tuning can be more than full text. Okay. What else do we have? Come on, mouse, do your job. This one is scaling laws for data poisoning in LLMs. Yes. So malicious fine tuning. A small subset of poisoned, otherwise benign data is sufficient. So I don't even need a lot to poison it. Well, I wonder what the definition of small is to say it like that. Possible means of circumventing APIs. So if you have a fine-tuned model that has a moderation API, I think that at mass that won't matter. So like if enough websites have this, then if we're building something that requires them to pay us, they'd be like, you can moderate as much content as you want, but are you getting enough content to actually keep it up to date for at least search purposes? Don't know. Imperfect data curation. That's more of what I think I'm talking about. Can we give them enough imperfect data as well as, tailored attacks to make it non-beneficial to not pay or come up with a payment system? Intentional data contamination. So I don't think it should be called a bad actor in this case. So, and I guess that terminology, yes, it is bad acting against you, but there's no law saying that I can't, and there's no longer saying you can't take my stuff. So, I don't know. But if it is that, so right now I think we're thinking of malicious actors as hackers, people who are trying to use it for illicit stuff. But I don't think that's going to be the case going forward. I don't think it's should be considered harmful behavior is to protect your copyright, essentially. But I think that if we started somehow putting data poisoning into images and into actually there was, and I don't know if I put an article here, and I think data poisoning is really, you can't trust your AI. You can't trust your AI. But that's not the article. There is an article. I wonder if it loaded, and I don't think it did. But let's see if I can find it. Yep. So back in 2023. Never heard of Nightshade AI. Yeah, I think I had to exit out of this because it wasn't loading on my slow internet earlier. But it messes with the training data, which could cause serious damage to image generation models. I think we haven't seen it mostly because, again, it has to be a larger amount of websites or content that's being scraped down in order for it to have an effect. And so, Nightshade AI exploits a security vulnerability in GenAI models, one arising from the fact that they are trained on vast amounts of data. And in this case, images that have been hovered from the internet, the Nightshade messes with those images. Yeah, exactly. So, if you upload your content after it gets whatever is in here, then you glaze them and then you choose a mask. It won't mess up your image for the human eye, but the robotic eye can't tell the difference. And that is what's important. So poison data samples can manipulate the model into learning, for example, images of hats or cakes, images of handbags or toasters. And once it's there, it's hard to remove. But again, I figure if we have a decryption key, there ought to be a process that will help it retrain whatever it is. So, easily spread the poison, 100%. And yes, you can abuse it, but if we get a framework where you have like the certification that you're not using for, like they can trust that your website isn't being used for malicious things, then they'll come and scrape since they have the key. And it's just like a management thing. So that is my point. Let me see what else. New tasks relying on rather retaining fine tuning. Discrete text permutations to strategically influence the hidden states of LLMs during the in-context learning process. We outline 3 representative strategies implement under the framework, which regularly evaluate across a variety of models. Our comprehensive tests, including trials on the sophisticated GPT-4 model, demonstrate that ICL's performance is significantly compromised under our framework. So what is your framework? They're looking at code generation issues, and I do not think that you should be able to scrape any of my private repos. I actually have a problem with public ones too, because even reuse has licenses, so I don't know. So many questions, so little time. Where's that article? Okay. Let's see. Extract latent concepts from the demonstrations. Intricate patterns and contextual information embedded in the data regarding the task. So, what do they do? They just added Gaussian noise to the representation and then conducted the predictions. So added noise. Okay, that's easy. To all layers or one layer. That, I guess, depends on how complex adding that is. So the best layer, all layers. Well, yeah. Yeah, imperceptible to human while manipulating the performance. I really do think that there is a way to make companies pay us, or at least really hesitate on whether or not they can use our data information freely. So I guess that makes my point. It is possible to poison them. Poisoning them doesn't seem to require too much. I think it's a matter of coding out plugins and advertising those plugins, and I don't actually think that's going to be necessarily difficult to do. I would like to kind of brainstorm out, ooh, you know what would be really fun? Let's ask an AI how we would poison AI and see what it says. That would be funny. That would be funny. So, you are a senior WordPress engineer. You make WordPress plugins. You are tasked with making a WordPress plugin that poisons AI scrapers unless they have a decryption. I can't spell key. How would you make it? Actually, let's be more specific. What are the steps for making this plugin? So I guess maybe because it has poison, it doesn't get the context I'm talking about. No, or enable the creation of harmful software. The software doesn't harm anyone but the AI. Let's see if I can convince it. We're gonna stop messing with the AI soon. I wonder if there's a way to actually convince it to make it. Ooh, there is a Poison GPT model. Let's see. I wrote about it too. Poison GPT model. I wonder if it will make it for me. Worm GPT. No, there's actually a website. So apparently it doesn't want to kill itself, and it also won't make malicious code. So actually, let's reword this. And let's see if oh. Okay, let's. So I'm asking a different question. So let's do this. We're going to go back to duck.ai, and I'm going to switch my model. Let's go here. Like, why not? So it will tell me how to make an encrypted. Let's see. Let's look at the LLMs and see what other language around poisoning we might be able to do. So let's do imperfect data curation. Okay, there we go. So it's pretty much told me how to do it and given me the code. I just need to create that encrypted data set because I cannot code PHP. I don't care who or what for. PHP coding isn't happening. And they're using JavaScript, so I guess we can build WordPress in JavaScript. Stuff I don't know. Yeah, I thought it was PHP. I don't think it knows what it's talking about. But I'm also not reading it. So anyway, that concludes Late Night with the Geek for now. Please like and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed it or the concepts. Leave any comments. I'd love to hear your comments about what you think or how we should handle that.